Hi, good afternoon. It's Jim. I thought I'd do a breaking news on just a couple of these topics that I'm about to discuss very briefly with you. I'm not going to keep you too long because I just think it's so important that we all get a good grasp of the situation, because right now we are being so pacified in the West on the whole, that it does require actions, and no longer just sitting there waiting for the train to slam us. So we need to move off that track at some point. So I want to begin with the fact that everybody's talking right now over the last couple of days about the intermediate ballistic missiles that Russia used for the first time during the Ukraine war. Yeah, look at what we're looking at here. It has just rolled over 36 trillion, and nobody's mentioned this. Nobody at all has mentioned the fact that the US debt has just rolled over to 36 trillion. But look at the US total debt now, 102 trillion. It's way up beyond insolvency. Way beyond insolvency now, America is. It's finished. That currency is worthless. And I don't think that the brothers and sisters over the pond truly grasp what is about to happen in America, because countries are already removing themselves from the dollar, which means that money is coming back to the coast. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand how that is going to hyper-inflate your currency. So I've been telling people that live in cities like New York and Washington, big cities in the United States, to sell the property and go and find themselves a homestead. And just while the dust settles, if it does, if ever normality comes back to some reality, then okay, go back to your lives that you had. But I think you'll agree with me, there is no jobs like there used to be, especially the ones that we all wanted, which were the ones that were called or classified as jobs for life. Those have gone. It's not just you guys in the West. The UK is insolvent. Most of the countries around Europe are insolvent. Just look at Germany, shutting down all the manufacturing plants of car companies like Volkswagen and Mercedes. Incredible. They're laying off people like you wouldn't believe. People that have for over a decade relied on the salary to pay the mortgages. What the problem is what these countries don't realise is that when they drove up and allowed the energy companies to charge more for the electricity, and the reason why first of all they charged more for the electricity is because they was being forced with green policies. You must produce electricity by the means of wind turbines and solar panel and other clean ways. That drove up the investment, that demand in the energy sector to invest in these things, and they're not cheap, and they certainly aren't green, because if you look at the quantity of concrete that goes in the pad of a wind turbine, you'll understand that. But for the next 1,000 years, that will be a massive carbon issue. But they don't talk about those sort of things. What they want is to go ahead and destroy these economies in the West like they have, and at the same time, do nothing about it. It's like I've said for a long time, it seems to me always to be the case these days that the wrong people are in the jobs that they've got. These people should have never taken the role that they've got or been given it, but yet they have. So moving on, the International Court finds Netanyahu guilty of war crimes, and there's an arrest warrant out for him as we speak now. What about all the Western leaders that have been supporting Netanyahu in the battle over Gaza and Lebanon and Iran and Yemen and all the other countries? What about the West's financial help and the West that have supplied the weapons for this war crimes to be committed? I have always been under the understanding that if you aid and abet in a crime, then you're just as guilty as the person committing the crime, because you are assisting that person to commit the crime. So, Keir Starmer, Boris Johnson, and Richie Sunak, you've all got blood on your hands. And why hasn't the International Court issued warrants for your arrest as well, as Biden as well? Just moving on. Joe Biden has just forgiven Ukraine on the tens of billions loaned, whilst America deals with the misery of the cost of living crisis. I'm sure if that's not enough to boil your blood, I don't know what will. And then, like I said, across Europe, all the countries face massive job losses in the manufacturing sectors, mainly due to the energy costs and green policies. Nothing is being done about this. They are attacking the farmers in Europe and in the UK, bringing out crazy policies like, inheritance tax now on the UK farmers, which, let me just remind people, it is the farmers that put the food in the shops. And if you don't think that inheritance tax is going to have an effect in the coming years when it fully takes effect, then you're absolutely wrong, because what we're going to see is the breaking down of these small farms, and it is the majority of the small farms that make up the majority of the food in your shops. So when that becomes less and less, or it's produced less and less by these farmers, or it's a standard, isn't it? Supply and demand. If things are in more demand and less supply, then you will pay more of a premium price for those. So, this cost of living crisis is worsening, and yet these people that are running everything in the West can't see it. It may look like, the West is totally over. It may not look like the Western countries is totally over, but I guarantee you, the Westerners that are living in the West, it feels like it is. And how long will it be before a civil war breaks out in these Western countries? Now, I'm not the first person to mention this, because Elon Musk has said how there hasn't been civil unrest and civil war in Europe already is beyond his understandings. And, I'm just going to leave you on this note. It was a quote from Davos. And I've got to say this: it wasn't a statement. It was just it was just something that was supposed. And you'll understand what I'm saying when I tell you the quote. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, it may have just been a suggestion at the time, but it certainly looks like right now it was more than a suggestion, because it looks like it's actually in effect. So, I think, that we could start seeing in less than 12 months civil unrest and, civil wars break out, not just in Europe, but with the way things are going over in the United States. They're deliberately throwing away, and just like we have here in the UK and Europe, threw away billions of pounds on wars that shouldn't be fought in the first place, like in the Ukraine and what's gone on in Gaza. And not only now have we found out that there have actually been war crimes committed, that we've actually supported it with our taxpayers' money. Incredible times that we're living in, guys. Absolutely incredible times. I'll leave you with that. I didn't want to keep you as long as what I did. I just wanted to say, look at this, 36 trillion now. It's rolled over again. No one's bothered about talking about it in the mainstream media. Maybe they think it's nothing. So when the next 4 trillion, and that in the next year will be at over 40 trillion, maybe they might pay attention to at that point. Or maybe, they'll just give more and more trillions away to other parts of the world where the wars are needed to be fought to keep the industrial military complex serviced and waxed rich. Just like, we see happening in the pharmaceutical industries. That's the reality check for us all today. Guys, there's a link down there in the description. If you want to help support what we do here, then we would completely appreciate that. It's entirely up to you. And on that note, I will end it here. You have an amazing day. Try your best in this horrible day and age to do what you can for your loved ones and friends. As always, bye for now.